This is from the prophet Ezekiel, 600 BC. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds. Prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God unto the shepherds. Woe be to the shepherds that feed themselves. Shall the shepherds not feed the flocks? And the sheep were scattered, because there is no shepherd. And they became meat to all the beasts of the field, when they were scattered. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every high hill. Yea, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and none did search or seek after them. Therefore, O you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. Behold, I am against the shepherds, and I will require my flock at their hand, and cause them to cease from feeding the flock. Neither shall the shepherds feed themselves any more. I will feed them with judgment. 26 centuries later, the fifth epical revelation. You are not given truth to crystallize into settled, safe, and honored forms. What a sorry sight for successive generations of the professed followers of Jesus to say regarding their stewardship of divine truth. Here, Master, is the truth you committed to us 100 or 1,000 years ago. We've lost nothing. We have faithfully preserved all you gave us. We have allowed no changes to be made in that which you taught us. Here is the truth you gave us. But such a plea concerning spiritual indolence will not justify the barren steward of truth in the presence of the Master. In accordance with the truth committed to your hands, will the Master of truth require a reckoning. Things haven't changed much in 2,600 years. You've all been reading the book for a very long time. And I'm sure by now you've realized that balance is the byword, is the theme in the Urantia book. Everything seems to require a perfect balancing act. The imbalance between self-liberty and self-control creates chaos. Imbalance between intellectual and spiritual growth is the cause of the downfall of nations. Imbalance between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches brings down empires. The Master, his personality, was known because of the perfection of his symmetry and its exquisite and balanced unification. Happiness in life is created by a body of clean habits, stabilized neural energies, and balanced chemical functions. It's also caused by a balance of work, rest, and play. Balance is a theme, a constant theme that runs throughout the Revelation and is extremely important in everything having to do with life. It's a little bit like flying an airplane. You have to have everything just balanced right. Otherwise, you're going to have a disaster. You heard a little bit about my background. After the Atlantis adventure ended, about 10 years ago, I came to the States. At the time, I was trying to show the validity of the Urantia book by proving the existence of the Garden of Eden, or Atlantis, and thereby attracting attention to the revelation that way, showing how could it have possibly known. And now, 10 years later, looking back, I see it as not an error, but miscalculation in what I was trying to do. Spiritual truths can't be deposited into human brain. They have to be experienced. It's an evolutionary process. I could bring Atlantis up from the water, show that it was exactly what the Urantia book said it was, where it was, how it was, and it's still not going to matter. I can almost hear, last week I was thinking, one of the strangest moments of my life was on that ship after 10 years of grueling, nail-biting work of getting to that spot and getting that sonar reading and failing to bring up concrete evidence. Being on that ship, heading back in rough waters, and the whole world was spinning around my head. And I could almost hear Jesus, what he must have been saying. Your generation shall not be given signs. You will not believe through miracles. You have to understand and experience. I didn't hear it then, but I hear it now. Once the project was finished and I came back, I really started to think, what is wrong with our movement? Why is it not attracting people? Where are the young readers? Where are the amazing folks that should be attracted to this unbelievable work? What is there not to love? A God that's universal, a universe that's friendly, a life that can be understood, mastered, and propelled into an everlasting life in a fantastic, beautiful, healthy, loving, pure universe. Why is it the way it is? In the back of my mind, I knew there must be something wrong. One of my favorite quotes from Jesus is, a wise man, when confronted with a locked door, would not crash it down, but would rather look for the key with which to open it. That's always in the back of my mind. There is a way. If we're not successful, it's because we're not doing something correctly. Another project that I did was, I'm a mythologist, comparative mythology, ancient history. I guess with the Urantia book, I would be known as an expert. One of my side projects that I fell into and I fell in love with was finding how Jesus used mythology to his favor. How he actually formulated his entire life plan to match in an incredible number of ways the legend of the mystery hero, or the sun god, which was prevalent in all the pagan religions in the world at that time. From the very beginning, he was following a script. If you haven't seen it, you can go on YouTube, look Robert Sarmast, Secrets of Jesus Christ, and it should come up. It's a 7-part series. It's one of the favorite things, most favorite things I've ever done, because it's mind-blowing what he did. It's just beyond belief that he could do this and, and what it did. Well, one of the things that made me realize was how he prepared the world to accept his message by formulating his life story to be a certain way that would appeal to them. Now you got to realize, okay, so he's gone now. 300, 400 years have gone by, and some man or group of men or women from faraway places, strange cultures, different languages, are in your village, and they're talking about the story, and people flock to it. Why? how could this story, I mean, one thing, you could say, well, when he was alive, his outstanding personality, the things that he did, and the way he did them, okay, they would win over anybody that was in his right mind. But what about 400 years later, when it's just a story being told by a group of foreigners? Where is the appeal? How did that story turn the entire world on its head? How did what he did work, and yet we have a revelation that's a continuation, expanded, and enlarged version of the same things he said, and we hit that locked door again and again? What key did he have that we don't have? That's the question. What did he know that we don't know? What did he do that we're not doing? How did his story turn the world upside down? Why is ours heading over a cliff? Jesus never wrote anything down. Now I'm going to ask you why, and I know what you're going to say. Because he didn't want to give the opportunity for idolatry, of people worshiping things he used to write down. He left nothing behind. But have you ever thought, why didn't he have other people write it down? Why didn't he write? He could have written 1 million Urantia books, far more complicated than the one we have. Why didn't he have somebody else write it? Now, I know what we would be doing if we lived in his generation. We'd be copying everything he said religiously, word by word. We would hire as many scribes as we could, jot it down, copy it, translate it, and distribute it. Right? Am I wrong? Isn't that what we're doing now? Why didn't he do it? Ever wonder? Why did he never write it down? Why didn't he ask other people to write it down? If he was so interested in keeping what he was teaching intact, without compromise, perfect, as he was telling it, why did he not write it down? Why did he appear to Paul, of all people, somebody he'd never even met, never taught? Why did he, as the Revelation says, not stand in the way of baptism? We're told that he knew that there was a church that was going to follow his work. The reason he never wrote it down, the reason he didn't stop it, the reason he didn't mind his story changing and in our minds corrupted or compromised, is because he already knew that it would happen. He already knew that that's the way things work, and he was okay with it. And I'm going to show you why today. We have a 2,100-page philosophical, theological tome, a masterpiece, but also probably the most complicated book on earth. Right? Anybody know a more complicated book in the history of Earth than the Urantia book?
Organic chemistry.
Organic chemistry, you study some history. It's just you can get it down a few semesters. Urantia book, you have to have experience. And even with the experience, as I'm sure most of you know, even people that have been reading it for years or decades still get things wrong because it's a many-sided, as they call it, teaching. At times, it seems contradictory. It's an incredibly confusing book in some ways. I'm going to go through some examples. This is from one of my favorite parts in the book, the nature of cultism. The cult, which just means religion, organized religion is what they call a cult. The cult preserved sentiment and satisfied emotion, but it's always been the greatest obstacle to social reconstruction and spiritual progress. Wow, we don't want that. The greatest obstacle to social reconstruction and spiritual progress. Sounds like something we should stay away from. But as religion becomes institutionalized, as religion becomes institutionalized, its power for good is curtailed while the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. Whoa. Okay, so we got it down. We don't want an organized religion. It's gonna greatest obstacles to spiritual progress. We're all here to make spiritual progress, and there is the main culprit for stopping it, the cult. Organized religion. Stay away from that guy. Here we go again. As religion becomes institutionalized, its power for good is curtailed while the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. Backing up what it said. We don't want that. And then, notwithstanding that the cult has always retarded social progress, it's regrettable that so many modern believers in moral standards and spiritual ideals have no adequate symbolism, no cult of mutual support, nothing to belong to. What? Notwithstanding that it's always retarded social progress, spiritual progress, multiply dangers. So basically saying, notwithstanding that the cult has always retarded social and spiritual progress, it's too bad you don't have one. Am I wrong? That's what it says.
Well, it could be.
No cult of mutual support.
Maybe it's a phase we go through and grow out of it at some point. But we need it now.
The point is, it's confusing. It's giving what appears to be contradictory information. This is one of my favorites because it's in the same sentence. In one sentence. It's regrettable you don't have this thing that we say is really horrible. Then we go to another sentence. While it's true that the institutionalization of religion has usually detracted from its spiritual quality, it is also a fact that no religion has thus far succeeded in surviving without the aid of institutional organization of some degree, greater or lesser. What's the key word here? Survival. Notwithstanding that it detracts, no religion can survive without it. Why? Because we are imperfect, evolving, incomplete creatures. In a perfect universe, in heaven, sure, you don't need to institutionalize anything. Everybody is following the will of God perfectly. They don't need any help. They don't need any institutions. They don't need anybody telling them what to do, what not to do, where to go, what not, They already know all this stuff. There's no need for institutions. But here, we need it. Let me give you an example. Let's go back to this. Second part, 9963. But as religion becomes institutionalized, its power for good is curtailed, while the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. Okay, so it's bad, or is it? What else can we substitute in there? Let me substitute law enforcement. But as law enforcement becomes institutionalized and we give weapons to humans, its power for good is curtailed while the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. Sure, now you can have people walking around killing people and getting away with it. What about governments? As governments become institutionalized, this power for good is curtailed while the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. Sure, we give people the license to make laws for other people, whole communities. Guess what? You've multiplied the danger of corruption, of them abusing those privileges, of them making laws that are only good for them or their friends or their class. We all know about that. What about the medical field? As we give licenses and degrees and rights to perform surgeries to doctors and surgeons, the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. Because now you're giving room for malpractice. But do we need a law enforcement? Do we need government? Do we need doctors? Yes, we do. So we have to have it, even though the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. Let me give you another one that's my favorite. When God puts soul and personality in a physical body that's barely above the animal level, the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied. Well, God didn't seem to have a problem with it. Did he have a problem with that? He put personalities in animal bodies. Is he afraid that the possibilities for evil are greatly multiplied? No. So that's why it's so confusing, because to understand it in a comprehensive way takes far more than a surface read. Let's give you another one that's confusing. Jesus saying, I admonish you to ever remember your mission among men is to proclaim the gospel of the kingdom. Proclaim the whole truth of the good news, not just part of the saving gospel, okay? We have to proclaim the gospel of the kingdom, the truth, all of it, like the Urantia Revelation. And then, Jesus' life on earth presents such a striking and appealing picture of man saving and God revealing that the theologians and philosophers of all time should be effectively restrained from daring to form creeds or create theological systems of spiritual bondage out of such a transcendental bestowal of God in the form of a man. How does that make sense? So we're supposed to proclaim the truth, proclaim the gospel, and yet we should be restrained from daring to form creeds or create theological systems. I'm going to go on to show you how these two misunderstandings, one about organized religion and one about creeds, have been the Achilles heel of the Urantia movement. These two concepts and the misunderstanding that has evolved out of them have been our fatal flaw, our Achilles heel, and if we don't correct it, our death spell. So, in one section, cults are horrible. They detract, they stop spiritual progress, they multiply danger. In another section, the old cults were too egocentric. The new one must be the outgrowth of applied love. The new cult must, like the old, foster sentiment, satisfy emotion, and promote loyalty, but it must do more. It must facilitate spiritual progress, enhance cosmic meanings, augment moral values, encourage social development, and stimulate a high type of personal religious living. Now, not only are they saying it's needed, but they're going further and telling you exactly what it should look like. It must. They're giving us an order to create this cult. Even though apparently it's a bad thing. Confusing. Before I go on, I should tell you, I come from Iran. I'm not a big fan of organized religion. I know many people here today and many people watching later are strictly against organized religion to the point of paranoia. And I just want you to know there's nothing that you don't like about organized religion that I already don't know and haven't experienced the horrible results of myself personally far more than any of you, or most of you. And yet, my research in the last 10 years has shown me that we have been in a gross state of error. We have been out of balance. And I'm going to show you why. The cult, this is from that same section, the nature of cultism. The cult is the skeletal structure around which grows the living and dynamic body of personal spiritual experience, true religion. Skeletal structure. You know, one of the other confusing things about the Urantia book is it's redefining everything. We have a very simple of understanding things, and they come, and the dust goes up, and all of a sudden everything has to be recategorized, re-understood. Religion, for instance, is one of those words. Religion is divided into two very separate things. The true religion is what you experience inwardly, with the God within. Then you have the cult, or organized religion, which is something that is a manifestation or an expression or thought symbols of our thoughts. Words are thought symbols. So it's recategorized. So when we say religion this and religion that, you really have to be careful. And that's what they are. That's why they have to use the word cult and differentiate that with true religion, which is the inner personal spiritual experience. The cult is a skeletal structure. Look at the next one. The symbols of a socialized religion are not to be despised as channels of growth, albeit the riverbed is not the river. Socialized, organized religions are not to be despised, but we do. We despise them. You can go on the Foundation's website right now. We don't want churchianity. We're against church. I've been called every name in the book in the 10 years that I've been working on this. It's toned down a lot, and I think a lot more people understand the need for it than they did 10 years ago. Look at what I want you to notice here is the metaphors that have been used. The cult is a skeletal structure and is a riverbed that carries the river. What these imply is the ability to move and grow. Without a skeletal structure, our bodies are just a mass of flesh, blob on the floor, can't move. Without a riverbed, the river is just a moss-gathering puddle. You need the riverbed for that river to move. You need the skeletal structure for the body to move. Again, they're telling us the need for both, not one or the other. It is difficult for religion to survive as the private practice of isolated individuals. Anybody here feel it like an isolated individual in this world? This has ever been the error of the religious leaders. This is one of the most important sentences in all of the Urantia Revelation. Seeing the evils of institutionalized religion, they seek to destroy the technique of group functioning. In place of destroying all ritual, they would do better to reform it. That's us in a nutshell. Now I want you to pay attention to what it says. They seek to destroy, not to avoid, but to destroy it. And this has always been very puzzling to me. How could you be against group functioning if you want to get anything done? And yet that's what it says, and that's what it is. That's how people are. I mean, even insects realize the need for group functioning when you want to get something done. And we're against it? They seek to destroy the technique of group functioning. What does that mean? We don't want leaders, we don't want followers, we don't want any organization. We're a bunch of isolated individuals to the end. And look where it's landed us. What's the average age in this room?
82.
Where are they? We're all the young folks. We have one of the most energetic, amazing, intellectual, loving, pure teachings on earth, not one of the. Where is everybody? We've destroyed the technique of group functioning. No church, no organization, no group worship, no group prayer, no ministers, nothing. That sentence follows. Again, the sentence is institutionalized religion. They seek to destroy the technique of group functioning. In place of destroying all ritual, they would do better to reform it. In this respect, Ezekiel was wiser than his contemporaries. Though he joined with them in insisting on personal moral responsibility, he also set about to establish the faithful observance of a superior and purified ritual. Now, don't be thrown off by this word ritual. And this section, the early Christian cult was the most effective, appealing, and enduring of any ritual ever conceived or devised. We would never think of a organized religion as a ritual, and yet that's what they're calling it. And the reason they say that is because to them, our inner world is the real deal, and the outer world is a ritual. It's just an expression, an outward manifestation, a sorry excuse for what's really important and what's really real, which is what is going on inside you, your relationship with life, God, and the universe. So Ezekiel was wiser, according to the revelators, because although he insisted on personal moral responsibility, which is, you can still hear that within our readership today. Moral responsibility, individual moral responsibility, no organization, no religion, no nothing. It's everybody's individual moral responsibility. It should go no further than that. Although he respected that, he also set about to establish the faithful observance of a superior and purified ritual against as a religion. Superior and purified religion. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Now, when I was really getting down to the nits and grits of where we're at and why we're here, I thought it was something peculiar to our time. People that are against group functioning, against ministers, against religion, against temples. But as I studied that section, I saw Ezekiel, that he was wiser and personal and moral responsibility. And anyway, I decided to study him. And lo and behold, what we're going through now in our generation is extremely similar to what was going on in Ezekiel's day during the Jewish captivity in Babylon. In his day, the Jewish priests had a bloody, primitive observance of rituals. The pigeons, the bloody pigeons, the sacrifices of the goats and the sheep, and the smoke and the holy altar and the blah, blah, blah. And there was the prophet class, the Jeremiahs and the Isaiahs and Micah and Ezekiel and all the rest of them that were all expressing during the captivity, just before, during, and just after. They were all dead set against all rituals, all priests, all organization. Micah said in the Bible, "Wherewith shall I come before the Lord? With burnt offerings? It hath been told thee, O man, what is good, to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God." Not burnt offerings. God doesn't need your smoke. This is 2,500 years ago. The Urantia book says that some people even believed. It was very advanced for that time. It says actually in section 97:5:5 about Micah, "But for the stubborn resistance of the priests, these teachers, the prophets, would have overthrown the whole bloody ceremonial of the Hebrew ritual worship." They wanted to overthrow the whole thing. The baby, the bath water, and the tub. All of it. Get rid of it. That's where we're at today. We don't want any part of it. What is all this organized religion and their hocus pocus and smoke and all the corruption, all the nonsense, authority? We're like that. I want to read this sentence, this section from, actually it's a website written by Jewish scholars that talk about Ezekiel, just so you can see what was going on in his day. While Ezekiel preached ethical living, he also laid great emphasis on the ritual. Remember, the Urantia book said he wanted the personal responsibility, but also the purified ritual. This is still remembered in Jewish lore. While Ezekiel preached ethical living, he also laid great emphasis on the ritual. The whole second half of his book, from chapter 40 on, is a description of a temple that will be built after the restoration and the restoration of the temple, and the details of the duties of the priests and sacrifices which should be offered. It's inconceivable that Amos or Isaiah would have recorded such a picture of the future, because they were all dead set against any ritual. Ezekiel is unique in those prophets, and as the Urantia book says, wiser than his contemporaries. Who are his contemporaries? Some amazing prophets. Jeremiah, Isaiah, Micah. Incredible prophets, and he's wiser. He was in Jerusalem before the captivity, and he, along with Jeremiah, were warning the Israeli nation that the doom is coming because you're not following God's word. And they were prophesying that there's going to be a calamity, they're going to come and take you as captives and take you away. Sure enough, that happens. They go to exile in Babylon, and he's taken with them. Ezekiel was the son of a priest, but he was unique in that he insisted on both moral responsibility as well as the ritual. All the great literary prophets before Ezekiel had a negative attitude toward the temple and its ritual, and this fact gave rise to the popular sermonic phrase, priest versus prophet. That's what was going on in his day. It's the priest versus the prophet, just like today. We are the prophetic class, and we are dead set against priests, which implies that we must make a choice following either the priest or the prophet, believing either in ritual or in righteousness, one or the other. Ezekiel indicates that such an opposition between ritual and righteousness is unrealistic. As far as he was concerned, the true worship of God involved both the prophetic emphasis on social justice and the priestly ritual observed in the sacred temple. He wanted to merge them. Judaism, in the end, followed Ezekiel. It did not become a pure ethical system following the prophets alone, just personal responsibility, everybody on their own, or a mechanical ritual system following the priests. He won. It didn't become one or the other. Judaism became, as Ezekiel meant it to be, a pageant of ceremony ennobled by prophetic idealism. He merged them. Because it was Ezekiel who pioneered the principle that ritual and righteousness need not compete for the soul of the true worshiper of God, and that priest and prophet can teach together, one may well say that he, more than any other, was responsible for the fact that at every Jewish public worship service, on every Sabbath and holiday, a reading from the prophets always follows the reading from the Torah. He was responsible for it. If you look at the ceremonies, the services that Jesus led, you'll notice that he always read from the Torah first, and then he moved on to the prophetic. Christ himself was following this tradition that Ezekiel set forth. Major, major wisdom. He was also the one that was responsible for seeing the chariots coming from the sky, the first UFOs. He would have definitely been all over the Urantia book. Challenge of this age. The religion's challenge of this age is to those far-seeing and forward-looking men and women of spiritual insight who will dare to construct a new and appealing philosophy of living out of the enlarged and exquisitely integrated modern concepts of cosmic truth, universal beauty, and divine goodness. This right here is one of the most important sentences in the entire book because it doesn't beat around the bush. The religious challenge of this age, not like the publication mandate It's for thousands and thousands of years from now. For now, you can just comatose. No. The religious challenge of this age is what? People who will construct a new and appealing philosophy out of truth, beauty, and goodness. What is a philosophy of living based on spiritual truth, beauty, and goodness? What do we call that in this world? It's called a religion. All religions are philosophies of living based on truth, beauty, and goodness, or as good as they can understand it, as much of that as they can understand. The religious challenge of this age is not to pass books around. The religious challenge of this age is to construct, make, formulate, create a philosophy of living. Could it be any more clear? It's been there for, 80 years? But we don't read it because it's difficult, because it's confusing, because in one section it says it's horrible, in the next section you should do it should look like this. What? It's confusing. But we're coming out of the fog. More and more people are understanding the need and are focusing on it. I don't know how much clearer it could get than that. Have we ever constructed this philosophy of living? Anybody? Where is it? They told us what the challenge of this age is 80 years ago. Where is this? Where is this construction of this philosophy of living? No. Why? We have allowed no changes to be made in that which you gave us. Here, Master, is the truth you gave us. But such an indolent steward of truth will have a reckoning before the Master. You're not here to create settled, honored forms of truth. You're here to create something that the masses will understand. Jesus never wrote anything down, and he never created this Urantia book of his time or asked other people to write it and record it and inscribe it on stone so that it never gets lost. He created a simple gospel that the dumbest person on earth could understand. Anybody could understand it. The righteous shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth. Those who do good will be rewarded here and hereafter. If they strike you in one cheek, turn the other cheek. If they want your shirt, give them your coat also. Spread the gospel. Be good to each other. Love each other. God is not here just for one tribe, one race, one nation. It's for everybody. Is that too difficult to understand? That is what changed this world. That is what turned Rome, the most despicable, horrible place imaginable, on its head and made the people that they were killing in the Colosseum their rulers. It was a gospel. It was not a philosophy book. Jesus never asked anybody to spread a philosophy, theology book. Show me where he said that. Such a new and righteous vision of morality will attract all that is good in the mind of man and challenge that which is best in the human soul. Here's another one. Those who are God conscious without symbolism must not deny the grace ministry of the symbol to those who find it difficult to worship deity and to revere truth, beauty, and goodness without form and ritual. In prayerful worship, most mortals envision some symbol of their object goal of their devotions. Are we those God-conscious souls that don't need symbolism? Yes, we are. We don't need ritual. We don't need smoke. We don't need ministers. We don't need all the razzle-dazzle and all the hocus-pocus. But we've also become those who deny the grace ministry of the symbol to the majority of the human race. We have become an obstacle. Not only will we not create it, we will destroy any attempt to create it. Most mortals need it. How is this world going to change? Is it going to happen through us sitting here in this room? No. The world changes through the masses. And the masses need symbols. We must not deny this symbol. We must not deny the ritual, the religion. They don't have time to read a 2,100-page tome about philosophy and theology. They don't have the interest or the wherewithal. Do you have the interest and wherewithal to read a 2,100-page of postdoctorate physics?
Yeah.
No, you don't. Do you care? No. What do you want to know? You want to know that E equals MC squared. Because that can be applied to life. That can improve your life. That's the end result of all that hocus pocus in the book of physics. And yet we require people to read this 2,100-page book. Well, what do you believe, Robert? Well, I can't tell you. You might misunderstand it. Go read that book. That's like a physics professor coming saying, I can't tell you what all this means. You got to read this postdoctorate book on physics. Same thing. And what would you do if he said that to you? Yeah, I'll get right on that. And what do people tell us when we tell them to read the book? Exactly the same thing. Oh, yeah. I'll be reading that real soon. It's only 2,100 pages, no pictures, size of an encyclopedia. I'm down. And yet we've been spreading this book as if it's the panacea to all the world's problems. That has been our main focus. That has been our sole function, and is completely imbalanced. Religion arises as a biologic reaction of mind to spiritual beliefs and its environment. It is the last thing to perish or change in a race. Biological reaction. They're hardwired for it. It's not even a question of desire. It's a biological reaction, a physical need. It's hardwired. They have to have it. Evolving mortal creatures experience an irresistible urge to symbolize their finite concepts of God. Irresistible urge to symbolize. They have this irresistible urge, they have this biological need that we are not feeding. Not only are we not feeding, we're stopping it. We're getting in the way of it. No, hell no. Can't have that. Jesus foresaw that a social organization or church would follow the progress of the true spiritual kingdom, and that is why he never opposed the apostles practicing the rite of John baptism. He saw the church, all these Urantia books, the church, Paul is horrible, the church is horrible. We don't want to become like the Catholic Church. Oh, God forbid we become like the Vatican. Jesus foresaw it, and he made it possible, not only by not opposing ritual, but also giving us ritual, and then going into Rome and preparing all the leaders there to receive his message, and then appearing to Paul of all people. Did the Alpha and Omega himself not know what Paul would do with it? Did he not know? Yeah, he knew. Not only did he not care, he wanted it to happen. Because he knows that that's what humans need. We are not at that place of evolutionary growth where we can do without institutions. We have biological needs, irresistible urges, creature needs that can't be met with solitary, individual, symbol-less ways of doing things. Man develops best when the pressures of home, community, church, and state are least. But this must not be construed as meaning that there is no place in progressive society for home, social institutions, church, and state. Is that what we believe? No. No church, no ministers, no organization. 80 years this thing's been out. Show me one minister. Where is it? Where is he? What are the first 3 things that Jesus did after he put his apron down? First 3 things, go look it up. First thing, organize the 12. Second thing, ordain them as ministers. Third thing, give services at the church, at the temple. 1, 2, 3. First 3 things. He had no problem with it. Not only did he not have a problem with it, he understood that we are not here to throw the law and the prophets out. We are here to fulfill the highest ideals of the prophets. We're not here to overthrow the established traditions of men. We are not capable of overriding what they're hardwired for biologically. We are not capable of stopping their irresistible urges. And yet we try, decade after decade. There is great hope for any church that worships the living God, validates the brotherhood of man, and dares to remove all creedal pressure from its members. Great hope for church. Has it not been there the whole time? Now, I know I'm criticizing here, but we're really at the edge of a cliff. Look at this room. Is this what should be happening for an epical revelation? No. The great weakness of all this unrecognized and unconscious type of religious activity is that it is unable to profit from open religious criticism and thereby attain to profitable levels of self-correction. It is a fact that religion does not grow unless it is disciplined by constructive criticism, amplified by philosophy, purified by science, and nourished by loyal fellowship. So I'm going to criticize. You're all big boys and big girls. Deal with it. It's time. It's like we're coming out of a fog. Because of the warnings or apparent warnings about the potential dangers of organized religion, and because of the misunderstanding of what creeds mean. Saying that creeds are bad does not mean that you should not tell people what you believe. In 80 years, there isn't a single place in all the internets that spells out what we believe. Why? Well, we don't want to create creeds. A creed, this is a complicated issue. I didn't know all this stuff myself. It took 10 years, so I don't expect everybody to just bowl over. It's going to take some time. A creed is something that people said in church, like the Apostles' Creed. You said it to become a part of a church, and then you recited it every day that you went to church. What is a creed? I believe in Jesus. I believe he rose on the third day. I believe in God and the angels. I believe that he resurrected on the third day. And the end. Great. So you believe this stuff. Wonderful. Why are the revelators so against creeds? Because they don't have goals. Goals, not creeds, should unify religionists. You all know that one, right? Well, what was a creed? A creed is just a lifeless, crystallized, static beliefs. It's just, this is what I believe. But what does it ask you to do? Nothing. Not a thing. I believe this, I believe that. Okay, great. The next group over there, they believe the same stuff, except that they believe that you resurrect on the second day, not the third day. They're going to hell. We are against them. We who believe this exact thing in this church, we're going to heaven. They're not. Automatic sects. Automatic enmity. What does it tell you to do? Nothing. I believe Jesus was this, and I believe in heaven, and I believe I'm going there on the third day, and I believe in everlasting life and in angels. Now, let's get down to business and rip off everybody in sight. I need to go do whatever mortals do, but it's okay because I believe these things, and therefore I'm going to heaven. That's what a creed is. Goals, not creeds, should unify religionists. A creed cannot have any goals because it's just a belief. I believe this and that. So what? Who cares? Is that going to change the world, what you believe? No, the world is going to change by what you do, not what you believe. Jesus' gospel, if you look at it, is infused with goals. It's not just beliefs. The gospel is a belief system. I believe that the meek shall inherit the earth. Is that written in stone somewhere? That's a belief. Those who are righteous shall see God. Is that not a belief? Everything in there is a belief. It's a belief system, but it's infused with goals. And it's simple and beautiful. Did you ever hear of Jesus giving anybody a theology book? Did he ever attempt to write one? Did he have anybody else write one? No, because he knows it's ineffective, a waste of time. Now I'm going to be a little critical because I don't want you to take it the wrong way, but it's time for us to face the facts. Because of this misunderstanding about what creeds means, and because of this misunderstanding about the inherent dangers of institutionalized religion, our main organizations have tried to skedaddle around the issue. But let me get this straight. So we have organizations that have a holy book. They have a self-made mandate to spread the teachings of Christ throughout the world. They have an icon, a symbol. They have members. They have institutions with leaders and a hierarchy, and they take donations. What is that? That's not an institution? That's not an institutionalized religion? What the heck is it? No, we're just publishers. Oh, really? I don't know any publishers that give themselves a mandate to spread the teachings of Christ. Publishers publish books. Because of these misunderstandings, we've gone into the closet. The dangers of formalized religion are, and we already have formalized religion. That's the thing. We're not talking about starting the first institutionalized religion from the Urantia book. We already have had 2, 3 more. What are the dangers? And we read this and we think they're talking about some hypothetical thing that we're trying to get away from, stay away from. This is talking about what we already have. The dangers of formalized religion are fixation of beliefs and crystallization of sentiments. We have that. Accumulation of vested interests with increase of secularization. We have that. We have corporations, minutes, hours, whatever. Tendency to standardize and fossilize truth. The Urantia book should never be changed. If you even sell one part of it instead of the others, if they're not together, we will sue you to high heaven. Fossilizing truth. Diversion of religion from the service of God to the service of the church. Inclination of leaders to become administrators instead of ministers. Tendency to form sects and competitive divisions. Establishment of oppressive ecclesiastical authority. We have some stories about that? Yeah, we do. Nasty ones. Ugly. Creation of the aristocratic chosen people attitude. fostering of false and exaggerated ideas of sacredness. This book must never, ever be separated. We have whole institutions based on keeping this thing together as it is. That's their sole purpose. The routinizing of religion and the petrification of worship, tendency to venerate the past while ignoring present demands, failure to make up-to-date interpretations of religion, entanglement with functions of secular institutions. It creates the evil discrimination of religious castes. It becomes an intolerant judge of orthodoxy. It fails to hold the interest of adventurous youth, and gradually loses the saving message of the gospel of eternal salvation. It's talking about us, where we're at. This is not some hypothetical organization that is telling us to stay away from. This is who we are. An effective philosophy of living is formed by a combination of cosmic insight. Remember, we're saying that the challenge of this age is to create a philosophy of living. That philosophy of living appears in two places in the book. This is the second. An effective philosophy of living is formed by a combination of cosmic insight and the total of one's emotional reaction to the social and economic environment. The total of one's emotional reactions to life. Reading a 2,100-page book of theology and philosophy does not give an avenue of expression for one's total emotional reaction to life. I'm dying of cancer, my daughter is getting divorced, my son is an alcoholic. Read this theology book. Is it any wonder? The danger at this point of us not correcting ourselves is that the inevitable, remember the nature of cultism section says that all revelations inevitably create a religion. It's going to happen. It's already happening. It's already happened. We have this institutions already. We're not talking about starting something new. We're talking about something that is balanced and effective for the world's population, not just for a bunch of mystics. Now I think you can understand better what Ezekiel was saying. Woe be to the shepherds that feed themselves. Shall the shepherds not feed the flock? Are you feeding the sheep by passing out a theology book? If they read 2,100-page books of philosophy and theology, they wouldn't be sheep by definition. Sheep are people that won't do that, ever. What was the first thing that Jesus said when he reappeared after Pentecost or after the resurrection? What's the first thing he said to the 12 apostles as he walked on the beach with them? Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. How are you feeding his sheep? You're passing out a theology book. You've never constructed a philosophy of living based on truth, beauty, and goodness. You're not feeding his sheep. My sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every hill. Yea, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and none did seek or search after them. I will feed you with judgment. Pretty serious. What have we done that's good for the sheep? Nothing. Not a thing. And I don't want to be overly critical. Hindsight is always 20/20. It seems to be something that we're just coming out of, some kind of a fog state. Maybe it's because it's so confusing, so complicated. Whatever reason, here we are. The reason that our airplane isn't flying And we can't get anybody on board. We've built this amazing airplane. It's made of gold. It's got the best food inside, the most comfortable seats. It's the best thing, the best theology, the best philosophy, best thing, the most gorgeous God, the most perfect ideals you can imagine. Why aren't you people coming on our plane so we can take you from here to there? Why are you going in these dilapidated junk airplanes full of ridiculous, primitive superstitions and not getting on ours? The reason is because we have built an airplane that only has one wing. The academic, the intellectual. It's imbalanced. There is no soul. There is no spirit. There's nothing for the sheep. What we're not seeing, and everybody else is, the reason they're not getting on our plane, is that it only has one wing. I'm not getting on that. That's not going to take me anywhere. I don't care if it's made of gold. We're not seeing it. We're coming to see it. This attitude of being against organized religion and against formulation of a belief system, anti-church, anti-religion, anti-organization, anti-ministers, this has nothing to do with what Jesus said or what he practiced, nor does it have anything to do with what the Urantia book teaches and asks us to do. This is a man-made perspective, and it's gripped us for the last 80 years. It has nothing to do with Jesus or the revelation. They both say church is needed, religion is needed, the skeletal structure is needed. Jesus never passed out theology books. He created a way for these religions to be made, even though they were not going to be perfect. They're never going to be perfect. No religion has ever been perfect. One of the greatest dangers or errors that the Urantia book talks about religious leaders is they want too much too fast, while humanity only progresses an inch at a time. Is that something we can be accused of? Read this 2,100-page, most complicated book in human history. We're not going to tell you. We're not going to simplify it. We're not going to tell you what it says. You got to read it. Is that expecting too much? Oh yeah, way too much. What did Jesus do? He created a simple gospel. He didn't care anything about his message being kept perfectly intact. He didn't inscribe it on stone. He never asked anybody to write it, copy it, translate it. Didn't care a bit. He created a simple gospel because that's what the sheep need. That is his role, to feed his sheep, not the shepherds. You're the shepherds. You're going. You know who you are. You know where you're going to go. You know why you're here. You have no fears. You're just fine. What about his sheep? What about all those millions of people that are contemplating suicide today? What about all the people that are starving? What about all the people that will never, ever read that book and are in misery because they don't know how to protect, how to control life? They don't know why they're here. They don't know where they come from, and they don't know where they're going. What about them? What are we doing for them? Nothing. We are imbalanced. The good thing is, it's easy to fix. I'm calling here today the formation of an organization that will fulfill exactly what they asked for. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. We're not talking about creating something weird, something unique, something different. We're talking about creating and emulating and copying what he did and what the Revelation says to do, which we've never done. We've never created the philosophy of living. We've never built the skeletal structure, and the ones we did had all the wrong things in them. We've never created anything for the sheep. We've never created a gospel. We've never tried to spread a gospel around the world. All we've done is try to spread this very complicated book, which has never worked, and which is why we are where we are. The fix is easy. We need an institution that's dedicated wholly to creation, the gospel, a philosophy of living based on truth, beauty, and goodness, the same as Jesus did, but enlarged by the fifth epical revelation. Beautiful, simple, effective. What people want to hear, not what they want to hear. What they need, what that irresistible urge that they have to fulfill that. Are we feeding them something they're not going to like? A God that loves you no matter what. There is no hell. Science is true. Evolution is part of God's plan. There are multiple heavens, multiple adventures. Is there anything bad in it? Is there anything ugly in it? No, it's beautiful. It's fantastic. But how have we expressed it? Have we ever expressed it the right way, in an appealing way? No, we have not. We need an institution now that goes far beyond just an academic learning institute. Book publishers. We need something that emulates what Jesus did. It's not that hard. Just do what the Revelation says to do. It tells you the new cult must be this, this, and this. It must do more. It must also do this, this, and this. Can we just follow what it says to do? Are we making stuff up out of our own heads? No. We're going to be doing what we've never done before. Following the revelation and emulating Jesus' life on earth. That's all. We can do it. It's not that hard. It's time. And I'm on the internet a lot. There are a lot more people now than 10 years ago that are fully cognizant of the need for this. And they are focusing on it, and it's going to happen. And the danger of you, the vanguard, not taking up this role is it being created by somebody you really has no business creating this. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. All we have to do is emulate exactly what he did. What we've been doing is following our own man-made perspective. We have never followed what they asked us to do. And that's why we are where we are. I hope you enjoyed this. I pray that some great things come out of it. I know it's going to. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. The only question is, do you want to be part of it or not? I know I do. What we're talking about is creating the greatest religion that this world has ever seen. The same religion that will go on to conquer nation after nation after nation, and one day become its sole religion and the dominant force on planet Earth. We are at the forefront of that adventure. You can be a part of it or you can't. It's up to you. God bless you. Thank you very much.
We're on the way. Now we have questions.
Oh, yes, yes.
People would really
Sorry.
want to discuss this.
Since I have the microphone, I think I'll ask my question first. Elsewhere in the book, it says religion has to be evolved. I don't know whether they use the word constructed, but it can't be constructed. It has to evolve. And what you've said is that we have been evolving, and maybe not the right way.
Yes.
So
We've grown a bird with one feather. Now it's time to evolve the other feather. It is evolving. It's been, 100 years? Some people think that means that it just appears out of thin air. That's not what it means either. It is evolving. We've already had these institutions that have already made these mistakes. We have come to a place where we've seen that. We've seen the errors. We've seen what's needed. And we're coming to a place where we're learning and recognizing what needs to be done, which is following exactly what Jesus did, not our own man-made path.
Robert, Marlene has a question for you.
Sure.
Robert, I wanted to just give you hope
in this room right now, there's just a small number of people that I met 40 years ago. I was a mother and a grandmother and came out of my home into the huge organization of the fellowship, or the Urantia people. I just studied with a study group in our home, Pierre's study group, for all those years. And what I found was almost everybody in this room were young people, and their enthusiasm was way over what you are even trying to portray. They wanted the whole world to know the book. There were young people in colleges spreading the book, and there was a lot of joy. And the woman, Julia Fenderson, that was sent here from Chicago, was my, she's the inspiration to me. She talked to Pierre and I about how important it was. I brought in children's groups and other groups from Oregon, and a lot of groups had children involved at that time, so we were really getting into that. And if you notice, it's starting again right now. What I was going to say, wise minds don't fail to pass things on, and even though history is repeating itself over and over, and we keep saying why, like you are right now, which is true. I saw from the families all involved and all the joy and all these young people, their input was so interesting, and they were real enthusiastic, and they were all sitting around here now. They're half my age. But I felt I had a wisdom through my childhood somehow that only love would win on the planet, only doing what Jesus asked us to do, to love one another as he would love us. That was God's message, he said. So that's the message I've been raised with and trying to live. And I'm emotional right now because I feel you very strongly, because about 40 years ago, all that was happening. All these people were, active in large study groups, and the children were involved, and things looked like they were really moving. But like all human life, the wisdom through the ages, and everything survives, thank God, is starting through young people today. But like I said, history keeps repeating itself, and we don't seem to learn very fast. But I feel right now there's a new, you're part of it. The young people that are coming forward right now want their children involved, because it's a beautiful book on how to raise children and how to be a good person and how to just love everybody. And I get accused of loving too many people, and I love everyone, and I don't care where I'm at, I will tell people. And it don't matter what your nationality is, because I've got a very large family, and I've got all nationalities in my family, and I don't see anything different in any of them. But I just wanted to tell you that you're at the forefront of a new, young people getting involved and trying to get it back, get the children involved, and you're going to see more and more of that all of a sudden because of people like yourself. And ask everybody in here. I mean, it was a very beautiful, big gatherings, and families and children, and everybody had the same idea: spread the word of Jesus, Jesus's message. And it was working for a while, and it just right now we're just in a low, yeah.
But we've never spread the word of Jesus. We've never spread his message. We've spread a book.
Yeah, it depends on who you're.
Of course, in day-to-day activity, you're going to give love, and you're going to tell people around you as much as you can, which isn't many people.
There are thousands and thousands of Urantia readers. They're trying to get the message around the world right now, but like you say, it's not something we hear a lot about.
Well, and the thing is, what is the common theme, and it's been the common theme for the last 70 years or whatever, is the book. We are just, who can blame us? It's such an amazing thing. But we've almost reached a place where I think we can call it fetishism. Yeah. No, it's the book has become a fetish symbol.
Robert, Andre has a question or comment for you, sir.
Sure.
Oh, thank you so much, Robert. That was really enjoyable, and I think you really hit on some very valid points. And I would be interested to know if you have some, concrete suggestions. Like, I'll give you an example. Right now, I have the ability to work with the fellowship on their website. If we could have a website what would the message be streaming across the, I mean, would we break it down into more bite-sized pieces for people? What is the good news? Click here for what's the good news. I mean, what do you envision when you've given us, you've inspired us, but are there some ideas you have that we could help put into gear?
Yes. It's our goal is to do exactly what the Revelation asks, and to emulate exactly what Jesus did. And what he did was formulate a gospel. What is the gospel of the fifth epical revelation? It's everything that Jesus said, plus some more things that people weren't ready for at that time. We don't care what your sexual orientation is. Is that going to win some people over? There is no hell. You're not going to hell. Evolution is part of God's plan. Now, these are the facts. You gather them up, and it's no easy task because, I tell people that gospel that Jesus formulated, I'm a writer. I play with words a lot. I love playing with words, switching them, juggling them, making one pretty. The whole thing is just a great game. That gospel that he wrote is probably the most amazing document that's ever been formulated on earth. Because just think about it, this one-page thing that he formulated, what is it, half a page, 3/4 of a page, turned the world on its head. Because once you hear it, you will never forget it. And you don't have to be particularly intelligent at all. You will never forget what you heard there. Because it's sublime, it's powerful, ennobling, empowering, and just gorgeous to hear. We'd have to create something like that.
How do we do that?
By taking what's already the gospel, infusing and enlarging it with the new things that have come, and presenting that to the world, not the book. The book is for shepherds. You're all shepherds.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
About 25 years ago, me, Robert Burns, and Christine DeSimo decided we'd start a church. And we had really no concept and no idea what to do. But we committed ourselves for about maybe 2 months, and we realized it was a big project. So my question for you, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it'd be a good thing. I think it would reinvigorate a lot of people. So I'm all for it. But the question is, much like Andrea asks, do you have symbols? Do you have any ideas how to apply these concepts towards an organization that would work and bring in all kinds of different people from, do you have some simple methods by which we could accomplish this?
I can't repeat this enough. He is the way, the truth, and the life. The beauty of this is we don't have to create, we don't have to think of this, we don't have to create it, we don't have to just beat ourselves over what should we do. A lot of hand wringing and teeth gnashing. What did he do? Created a gospel, ordained ministers, spread the gospel. Can we do that? Do we have even more information in the Urantia book about what needs to be done? The new cult must be this, this, and this. It must stay away from this, this, and this. The world needs, the church came later. What came first was the gospel, and the ministers, and the spreading of the gospel, and the healing of the people. That's the church. The physical church will come automatically later.
Have you talked to Papa Bontan? Because he set up all these ministers around the world that would be like shepherds, the people who would teach the book. And you might think about coordinating with him also.
He doesn't like this because
He doesn't?
no. He's against organized religion.
Got it,
This
got
is
it.
just the family of God. It's not. No, this is about the gospel of Christ in its original form, expanded by the fifth epical revelation, with ministers and an organization that's dedicated to spread this gospel to all the people around this world that can benefit from it, and they're in the billions.
Robert, where do you think the internet comes in on this? When I suggested, that we needed a church at some point, David Cantor said, well, you're a little behind times. Everything is happening on social media. And the other thing is, we need a critical mass to have a church. But actually, you're saying maybe we don't need a church, maybe we just need ministers.
The physical church, a lot of people, when they hear me talk about this, the first thing they want to do is go and get a physical building. We're not ready for that. We don't even have a gospel yet. Make a gospel. What is your message to the world? What is your message? Where are your ministers? Each one of you here knows more about God than the Pope. But you're all dressed in street clothing, and you're not helping anybody except the people in the immediate surroundings. Why is that?
Well, of course, Jesus taught as he passed by. So I assume all of us also share as we pass by. Are there any other questions for Robert?
You got 5 minutes, folks. Okay, I'm going to make it quick. About 2 weeks ago, I met a man from Burundi. Burundi, the fifth most poorest country in the world. And he has a ministry in Burundi that he was preaching, they were having a church and so on, and he eventually said, this isn't working, I'm going to buy rice fields. And so he bought rice fields, and now he's going to be seeing the first harvest this July. And he's going to use that rice to feed his sheep. Now, I've given his ministry, his rice ministry, some money. That's one of the things that we can do. We can find those people who aren't Urantia book people, but who are doing this kind of project or this kind of service, and make a reality of that service and that life. That's all I gotta say.
Well, that kind of stuff is good. But before our time runs out, I just want to say, you're going to be challenged if you take this. I love David Cantor. I love Mo Siegel. But they're from the old school, and we were all in the old school. And I don't know if any of them can get past that organized religion is a horrible thing. There's lots of people in this community that are of that bent. We have to keep a multi-generational perspective on this. Okay? Things like this don't happen overnight. How long did it take for Christianity? Hundreds of years. Before that, what was it? Just a bunch of people gathering in caves, underground caves in secret, doing group worship and group prayer with a simple gospel that maybe one person there could read. That's all it was. We're not going to turn this world on its head in our generation. We might not see the first universal church of Urantia, but it's coming. We are at the very forefront of it, and we have to be able to keep that in perspective. This is a multi-generational plan, just like the Celestials have a multi-millennial plan. We're going to set the framework. This is not going to happen so quick, Andrea, where we're going to have boom, 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 boom. It's going to be slow. First, we work on creating the gospel of the fifth epical revelation. We start ordaining ministers, qualified ministers that can teach the same thing that Jesus did. Slowly. We're not looking for instant gratification. We're setting the foundation of what will become the tallest and most amazing building on earth. All we're going to see is the foundation stone.
All right, Robert. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. God bless you.